Welcome to another episode of Transcending the Rabbit Hole. I'm Brandy Anderson, and I'm joined by my very good friends and co-host Annelise and Parker Bess. Today, we're talking about disclosure, the growing government acknowledgement of UFOs, or what is now referred to as unidentified aerial phenomena, and what it could mean for humanity if we are truly not alone. But this conversation goes far beyond extraterrestrials, because disclosure has the potential to challenge some of humanity's deepest assumptions about reality, consciousness, religion, and our place in the universe. What happens to traditional belief systems if non-human intelligence exists? Would religion collapse under the weight or evolve? We're going to explore the psychological, spiritual, and cultural implications of disclosure and why this moment may represent far more than just secret government information finally coming to light. Annelise and Parker, it's a privilege to transcend this rabbit hole with you guys.
Hey, Brandy, I am out of this world thrilled to be here for this one.
Yeah.
Same here. Me too, Brandy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation, and I know right up Parker's alley. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
excited.
definitely.
Yeah, excited. Yeah. So after decades of deception, the government is now releasing files that prove the existence of UFOs, or what would now be called UAPs, which I think it's just a distraction personally, and also maybe a setup to manipulate and control the narrative moving forward. But right before the files were released, a CIA agent warned pastors to prepare for the repercussions of information that could potentially shake people's faith. So far, I don't think anything earth-shattering has been released. It's like nothing that we didn't already know, or nothing that conclusively proves anything really that I have seen. Parker, you might have seen more. I know you looked at it a little more than I did, but
Yeah.
according to what I was reading, some pastors held a meeting right before the disclosure or the release of the information about the potential release of information saying that humanity was bioengineered by alien beings and that there is no God, which we'll get into all of that in a bit. For now, I just want to talk about the general reaction to the disclosure by people of faith. What stands out to me is the fear underneath all of it. Like, fear is always the first response to the unknown. And as humans, we tend to cling to frameworks that give us, like a sense of identity and stability. Institutions are no different. Like, they rush to protect themselves against the perceived threats. Governments do it, religions do it, media does it. Like, everybody starts trying to control the interpretation before the full truth is even known. And that's the important thing, I think, to note here. This is really about narrative control, because government suddenly becoming transparent after decades of deception is not actually about truth. Like, government transparency itself is a strategy. Information is always selectively released. There's always a spin and an underlying agenda. Anything the government is telling us is emotionally weaponized to steer the public perception in a desired direction, I think. And fear is one of the oldest tricks in the book. And it's not just the government, but religious systems too. Like, many religious people are already framing disclosure through a fear-based lens before understanding what any of it is really about. So it's no surprise that many are immediately labeling all UFO phenomena demonic, jumping straight into apocalypse and end times propaganda. So, yeah, I think it's not really about truth at all. It's about competing systems just trying to preserve their authority. And for people of faith, this moment could become deeply destabilizing if their spirituality is built entirely on external certainty or institutional authority. But if faith is rooted in direct experience, inner transformation, a living encounter with the sacred, then disclosure wouldn't destroy faith, I don't think. I think it would just likely expand it, because the existence of non-human intelligence wouldn't automatically erase God. It would only challenge humanity's assumptions about reality and our place within it. And I think maybe that's the deeper invitation really in all of this, not to blindly trust governments and institutions or fear-driven narratives on either side, but to become discerning enough to sit with uncertainty about surrendering our capacity to think and question and to seek truth for ourselves. Yeah, but I'm curious how are you guys kind of processing all of this right now?
I think from the church side of things, they've always been about, if it's not from our system, it must be evil. So I've seen plenty and plenty of the religious community trying to make this about demons. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm also wary of the government and how they go about doing anything. And so while I do fully believe in, while I'm aware of alien extraterrestrial life and involvement in our human story, I don't know that I trust the way the government's releasing it and what their intentions are with how they're releasing it and how much information they're dribbling out to us little sheeps out here. That's how it feels with them. Like the Epstein files, same thing. You get just enough to know there's horrible corruption going on, but not enough to, apparently, somehow, not enough to do anything about it. But with the UFO disclosure, I think the churches they're just going to have to prepare to crumble, but it's not going to be a crumbling of faith. It's going to be a crumbling of the institution, because when people understand that there's so much more than us out there, so much more life, so much more consciousness, that we are not the end all be all for creation, it's going to open up a whole new world. And I don't see that world including institutionalized religion. I do fully see it including reverence and alignment with the sacred, with God, with the all that is. So I think people are going to have to really work on getting over that like fear, knee-jerk reaction we all have to the thought of aliens, the thought of anything, and understand that mostly probably nobody's telling you the truth about it right now. And you're going to have to be really discerning, but don't be fearful either. This is pretty exciting. This is extremely exciting, especially if you can step out of the fear of its demons. Um, it's entities of all the spectrum of light and dark, just like us. So I'm just excited that the party's here. I really am, but I do want to help people get through it without fear, because if you'd have dropped this on me maybe 5-10 years ago, I would have been super scared. I would have thought apocalypse, and that's not what this apocalypse is. And I'll just leave it there for now. I have so much I could say. I'll pass it off to Parker.
Well, yeah, I think with the whole fear-based narrative of this, I haven't seen much of it, just because mostly my feed is people who like this kind of stuff, so everybody's feeling pretty vindicated that like all their research and all that feels like is, everything's kind of coming to light on that end. And you know, I've seen UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. So I think that's really interesting and cool myself. And we've had podcasts about well, first, let me say, like, I never thought in my life on Fox News they would be talking about Nordics, reptilians, greys, and
Right.
insectoids.
Could not believe that.
I mean, I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
But, so although like we know like that's true, we had a podcast about somebody who talks to the Nordic race people
Yeah.
or
Roger.
entities.
Oh.
And yeah. So I think that's awesome. But, what I'm kind of nervous about is them giving truth like at the beginning of like that, like, yeah, sure, like that. I mean, I personally believe that is true. There are those races. There's probably many more, but like those in particular. But then turning it into a narrative of like, there's this, ship coming out, like Corbell, whatever that guy was, Jim or Mike Corbell was talking about, the ship from deep space is going to come here and we all need to get ready to fight it. Like, stuff like that kind of narrative, I think, could be twisted so fast, and we really need to use our discernment when it comes to what is put on the news from, even different sources, I guess. Just, your intuition is going to be pretty key in this, because the waters are, can be and probably are so muddied at this point, between like real and what they want to be real, and it's a fine line, I believe. They have technology that can make it seem so real. Brandy, I mean, Annelise, you probably heard me talking about it, but Brandy, you've heard of Project Bluebeam, right?
Yes.
And that's like a government patent from like the 50s, talking about a CIA document talking about how they'll use satellites and like lasers from outer space to beam in people's like god of that region and like make it seem like they need to just dissolve that and take on this new god that's like a new world order type god, which is insane. But that's in like a CIA document, you know? So, I mean, the playbook's out there, I think. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of using your discernment on it.
I think it is definitely a distraction too from the Epstein file dropping,
Yeah, it
from
is.
Yeah, that too.
from
Yeah.
everything else dark going on. Like, not that that makes it not true, not that that makes it false, but it's like if we can just bombard these little humans with as much horror and fear as we can, they'll be much easier to manipulate. I mean, that's just the plan, and I
Yeah.
think we're all aware of that now. Um, so I'm super excited to kind of talk about this and dive into what is really going on.
Isn't that a CIA playbook too? Like what she just said, like Project Mockingbird or something like that, where it's like you inflict enough trauma upon
Oh,
the public, they'll like turn into they'll just be easy to manipulate at that point. And
yeah,
that's like kind of what they have been doing,
yeah.
which is
Overwhelm the nervous system. I think there was a psychologist who was talking about the Epstein file release and the way that the files were dumped. It's like mass amounts of information with no context and just all at once, just kind of all of this information. And it was designed that way to overwhelm the masses so that they wouldn't
hmm
really be able to metabolize the information in a healthy way
Yeah.
and do anything about it. So it's like we're just going to bombard people's nervous system with all of this and then
yeah.
leave them to sort of crumble underneath all of it. And that's definitely what's going on, uh, because the powers that be, um, yeah, they're always spinning a certain narrative. They're always controlling the narrative. One of the things that people are really bracing for is the release of information that says humanity was bioengineered by advanced intelligence beings. I was hearing that swirling around before the actual disclosure, but they didn't disclose that information yet. But the idea is that we were created by ETs to seed the earth. That's what I kind of kept hearing, and I still am hearing that. Um, online, some people are still kind of talking around that. But this thought isn't new information. Like it goes back to Sumerian mythology. And it found its way into more mainstream thought by, I think, Zechariah Sitchin, who was
hmm
really just elaborating on the work of Erich von Däniken. But it's the ancient astronaut theory that proposes that extraterrestrials have been involved with humanity since ancient times. And I've heard the theories that humanity was created as a slave race to mine gold for ETs, but admittedly, I haven't read von Däniken or Sitchin's work directly myself. But I have read Mauro Biglino and Paul Wallace, who both say similar things, and they're filtering their thoughts through a more biblical worldview, which I thought was really helpful. But they say that perhaps humanity was created or genetically manipulated by advanced intelligence beings, to which I would say perhaps humanity has been genetically manipulated, like through environmental, psychological, or even chemical influences that affect consciousness itself. But created by these beings, I personally would say no. I don't believe that we were created by these beings, because when people hear genetic manipulation, they immediately jump to like aliens altering DNA. But manipulation can happen in far more subtle ways through systems of fear, through what we consume, like physically, mentally, spiritually. So I think it's more like epigenetics, like the DNA sequence itself is unaltered, while environmental influences affect how the genes are activated or expressed. Things like processed food or pharmaceuticals, environmental toxins, and even the fear based media cycles. They're all examples of forces that can dull our awareness and suppress that deeper knowing or disconnect people from their own intuition and critical thought. Now, whether you believe, advanced beings are pulling the strings and manipulating these things or not, like we all know that humanity is undeniably shaped by its environment. And maybe the real question everyone really should be asking is not, were we engineered by aliens, but who or what is shaping consciousness right now? Like, who is controlling the narrative? What is the prevailing narrative? And what is the underlying agenda? But yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you guys think there's any truth to the claim that we were created or genetically manipulated by ETs?
At this point in my journey, I can say I do believe that we have absolutely had extraterrestrial involvement in our physical creation, whether that's manipulation of an original creation, like the ancient Sumerian tablets talk about the man that was already here, the Homo erectus, I guess they called him, and how he was manipulated to basically make like a hybrid race where we have humanity, so it's not caveman anymore. That's kind of how that they talk about it, and then the Gnostic texts describe it as very similarly, but in a more like spiritually poetic, mythological way. But they're saying the same thing, that there was this consciousness, this divine consciousness that was manipulated by, you could call them the archons, you could call them ETs, you could call them Anunnaki, you could call them whatever. So I think to some degree there's been a hand for sure. I think our original home is the spirit world, and by that I mean, like, we all go back to God. I truly believe that's where consciousness starts, is source, how we call it source, God. And I don't think we were ever meant to be physical. And so I think coming into physicality was not natural for us. And I think that's why we have such a hard time here. And I think trapping consciousness in physicality and aliens, ETs, I think they go together somehow. I think there is a connection. I don't think we are created by ETs. I think we are God. We are sparks of divine essence. But to be here in physicality and to be under the rulership and the manipulation of dark beings, yeah, that's where I stand right now. Is I think there was a hand at that, a hand in. I think that the ETs did have a hand in what we now look at as our bodies. There's hybrid races all over the earth. Uh, some people know they're part ET, some people don't. That RH negative, negative RH bloodline, you hear a lot of talk about that. So I don't think anybody is just like 100% OG human at this point in time. But that's where I stand right now. And I might shift my viewpoint as time goes on and more is revealed. I love that I have the freedom to do that. When more information comes to me, I can change what I think. But right now, that's where I stand on that. But I just want to reiterate, our souls are different than our biological bodies. And I believe our souls were created by who we call God. But our bodies, I don't know. I don't know if these bodies we're in now, um, I don't know that this is the original way that they were before other races landed here, as described in our most ancient texts that we have about creation.
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation. I kind of stand on the same, basis. I think, I think, I think the physical body is, I think it's just another evolution of what was here before. Um, you go back in time and you look at like skeletons that have been dug up in time, and you can tell like all these old Homo whatever, whatever the name is for them. But before the modern day human, they had like these like elongated jaws, or maybe, huge eyes, stuff of that matter. But it does make sense that like the ETs would come down and impart their, I guess, genetics with the modern human body at that time. Like Annelise were saying, people are going to have to realize like our souls are not our bodies. So our soul could have been, here, or maybe even another planet, multiple thousands of times. It's been here since the very beginning. So if energy never dies, we've all come to know that to be true, right? So, you know, like I said at the very beginning of this, like, this whole podcast, like, this is my body, but this is not me. Like, if I died, like, this hand would not be my hand anymore, like, this is just a body. So what could have been manipulated with this, that's, I totally could see that 100%. I mean, we do the same thing to dogs, And it's,
And now putting consciousness into AI in a way, putting like our mirrored consciousness into AI.
yeah, yeah, I mean, that too. I mean, but yeah, I just think, yeah, I mean, I personally do believe that back in all those days ago, and I think that there was other civilizations. I don't necessarily think like this just happened like 10,000 years ago. I think this happened like 100,000 years ago because
It's ancient,
yeah, I mean,
ancient.
this is like super duper ancient, not biblical ancient. So that's what I kind of think. It goes like way back, and you got the pyramids, and you got all the old architecture that's mathematically encoded with all these like divinely imparted mathematic sequences that you wouldn't get. Like, there's no way in probability that could happen, and then keep happening on all the other equations, because it's just magnificent. And, you can't replicate that today as well. So I just kind of think like there's just a lot of stuff at play, but yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I believe that we are fractals of God, like not a science experiment for ETs. And the physical realm is like a prison, and I don't think it was, our original intention, or the original intention for humanity, like you were saying, Annalise. But I don't, I don't believe it was created by ETs to keep us in prison like lab rats. So I guess I kind of um, diverge on that view that I've heard some people kind of articulating. The physical realm is just a lower density that results from lower states of consciousness. I would say physicality is the result of disassociation. Humanity dropped into duality, like into binary thinking. We bit into the distinction between good and evil, and we began to see ourselves as separate from source. So it's a state of disassociation that brought about the physicality. The physical realm is just what reality looks like from the outside. It's like it's an illusion. And by illusion, I don't mean that it isn't real. It exists, but it isn't what reality really looks like. Bernardo Kastrup uses the analogy of flying an airplane, which helps to make the point. Like we're in a plane navigating the sky while we're looking at the instrument panel. So the instrument panel is real, but it's not the sky. It's measuring the sky, it's helping us navigate the sky, but we're not actually seeing the sky as it truly is. So in my view, we were not created by these beings. We actually rank above them. As Paul said to the Corinthians, do you not know that we will judge angels? So I think we have just simply fallen asleep to our true identity. We've forgotten our essence, and these beings are able to prey on us in our forgetfulness. So I would say we are imprisoned, but it is we who have imprisoned ourselves. Like we're stuck in forgetfulness. And when we remember who we are, we're liberated. It's game over for these beings, these principalities and powers in the air. They have no power over those who are awakened. And I also just want to add that I don't think all of the beings are malevolent. And I think they're a mixed bag, just like humans, like anything in this world of duality. But there are some who feed off our negative energy and work to keep us oppressed and stuck in cycles of fear and shame and self-loathing. And that isn't news to anyone. Like I think most religious people believe there are unseen forces working to keep us from realizing our full potential. And my sources through the veil call them telepathic energy devourers, TEDs. TEDs is what we typically refer to them as around here, but they aren't demons exactly. Like demons are disembodied spirits located on the astral realm. TEDs are physical, interdimensional. They're advanced intelligence beings. But there are some interdimensional beings who are neutral and some who want to help us. Angels are an example, interdimensional messengers. So I think it's short-sighted and infantile to label all UAP activity as demonic. And it's why God gave us the ability to discern. Like we live in a world of duality where discernment is necessary. And it's a bit of a tragedy, I think, that we often forfeit that ability of discernment by just demonizing anything that we don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it as both. I think we do forget who we are, but I think we're created to forget who we are, because of the involvement, because of, well, like our oldest creation story in history is the ancient Sumerian tablets. And that's where our Genesis story in the Bible comes from. People think it's about God and Satan, the snake. It's about Enki and Enlil, and they're two alien brothers who do seed humanity, who do, do like that's what our Bible is telling us. And but the thing is, uh, the soul is not reducible to genetics, and if humanity was influenced, guided, seeded, or genetically altered by these intelligence these intelligences, that still doesn't explain consciousness and the source of consciousness itself. We are still above aliens in the way that if there are ones that are not also filled with the light of God, yeah, we do have power over them. But I really do think that because all of our creation stories are telling us this, and because of just experiences I've had, I think we are these light fractals of God that were put into bodies that serve a lower realm, but we forget who we are. So we're stuck in that serving. But once we remember who we are, like you said, we're liberated, we're free, we're above this, we're above any pulls from negative entities on our spirits. Almost like like we've been given amnesia in this manipulation that the Bible describes and that the ancient Sumerian tablets describe. And as soon as you awaken, as soon as you follow the Christic way, remember who you are, there's nothing anyone can do to you. You're able to say, yeah, I am in a body and I am the light of God. You're able to hold that tension now, where before you're just drowning in this physical world of suffering. And so I can see it both ways. Like, we're infinite consciousness, but based on all the evidence we have, it says we were seeded in some way or form by these brothers. So there's just a lot I think the church is not ready to unpack yet. I mean, because they're going to want to point to, the Bible says, that these two brothers manipulated humanity and fought over them and all this stuff. And then years and years later, we put it in the Bible and we call it God and Satan. But that's not who it was in our oldest creation stories. And so there's just a lot there that I think people are not aware of yet, but as they become aware of, their minds can open to think, hey, yeah, there is God, but God's not an old man in the sky who came down to this planet and molded us like Play-Doh people. Like, God is infinite consciousness, and once that fell into physicality, all those beings start creating things too. So we are, I believe, a part of a much bigger play than people understand. But at the same time, we are the light of God, and we have power and we have sovereignty. So I just think I think it's a bridge between both.
I definitely think there's been some hybridization in history. But I can't get on board with that we were given amnesia, put into physicality to keep us trapped, to keep us imprisoned. Because awakening wouldn't be the way out. Because if we're just trolling along doing our thing as infinite fractals of God, and these beings are able to just imprison us against our will into physicality, which causes us to forget, then we need an external liberator, because we were externally imprisoned in that way. So in my way of thinking, our consciousness became fragmented, and we dropped into lower densities, which by nature are just physical. The lower the density, the more physical, the more substantial reality, begins to manifest as. And so the physicality is, yes, it does serve to keep us, um, sort of cut off from ourselves. It's an impediment to awakening. But the reason that we're here, I believe, is because we actually became fragmented. Our consciousness became fragmented. We began to see ourselves as separate from the divine, separate from the whole. And so, but I do believe that we participate with these beings. I believe that it's a collaboration of such. I don't believe that we are held captive. I believe that we are collaborating with, in our lower levels of consciousness, in our forgetfulness, we are collaborating with these entities, because in order for them to feed off of our energy, and we did episodes on this, the loosh farming or whatever, we have to think the thoughts, right? Like, we have a free will in this. We have to, and I think that's why the Bible says, take every thought captive. Because it's our own thoughts and our own inclinations and the meditations of our hearts that sort of keep us trapped and keep us in these cycles and keep us collaborating with these entities that do not have our best interest in mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
You mentioned the external liberator. I think that's what Christ is. Christ is that external liberator that was sent here to liberate us from this wheel that they put us on. And it's that awakening to Christ within that frees you and allows you to work within that matrix, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
don't think Christ can awaken for us. I think we have a spark. Our divine spark within us must awaken. I believe Jesus opened a portal back into the higher dimensions where physicality is no longer a thing, because that's
That's
why
what I
death
mean.
came. Yeah.
External liberator.
But
I think he's the Holy Spirit that he gives us access to, awakening each person. But that external liberator being Christ too. There's a lot of people who think Jesus was an alien because they think he was sent from a higher dimension to break this matrix that these lower entities have put us under.
yeah.
And so a lot of people even see him as an ET. I don't see him as an ET. I see him as the very essence of God, but that would be in a higher realm that if you saw it with your eyes, you might call it a different planet. You could call, I see why people say Jesus could have been an alien. He
Yeah.
was thrown into this simulation to awaken people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think people's souls are not people, they're just energy in their self and fractals of God. And here on this plane, I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, like here on this plane of physicality, like it's the densest there is. But I personally believe when you come here, you are put here in a you don't know who you are state, but although you've been who you are for millennias and millennias, for eons. But when you come to Earth, for some reason, you forget who you are, and it takes going within, like Jesus said, like y'all were talking about, to go within to find who you really are and to awaken. And unless you do that, I just, to be one of the people who are one of the materialistic people, I guess, of Earth, I mean, it would be hard to escape the Matrix, if that's what you believe in, because with the Matrix, I would imagine I feel like I know comes the loosh of it, because I mean, that's just how it would be set up to feed these negative entities that hijacked what used to be or would have been created for,
Mhm.
a perfect planet, maybe like one in the cosmos, but something hijacked it to the point of, you know, taking people's energy because they are no longer connected to source. Kind of like you were saying, Brandy, they're not connected anymore. So they need a
Mhm.
food, a loosh. So they're able to suck it off of people if they're not knowing by being,
If they don't
asleep.
know.
But y'all were saying Jesus gave the blueprint of the way out. And I definitely do think you have to follow it. Like there's no I'm a Christian and now I'm saved and blah 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 like that. No, I mean I really think you have to find yourself out. Like it's a trap. Like I think that's the trap. It's like
Mhm.
that's the game. Is if you don't figure out who you are, then you probably do come back. One way or another or whatever. But I mean, I think they you come back unless you figure it out because maybe that's just a part of being in the lowest density. Lowest density.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I do think that ETs or interdimensional beings, visit, Earth, and some are there to help humanity along their progression line and help see the truth through little bits of information that are given and even given to certain people, and, I also think they were there back in the day. I think a lot of the old religious texts are stories of them, to be honest. I think the story of I'm gonna say, and the way I look at it, is the spaceship in Egypt following Moses's people in the desert, dropping bread down. That's that's how that's just a story that kind of could very well picture that. I mean, so I think there's a lot of correlation.
I'm going to throw in too the ancient Christian text that's not in our Bible called the Pistis Sophia. It describes Yeshua, Jesus's soul descent from the pleroma, from the God spark down to earth. And it says he had to fight every single dimension just to get down here to rescue Sophia, who is the spirit of all of life. But in this cosmology, he's rescuing Sophia, but he had to fight everything to come down here. So I don't I don't think that he would have to fight everything to come down here unless we were covered up by dimensions upon dimensions of other rulers that have had a hand in our dark world that we now live in. And I don't
Mhm.
think they're just in space either. I think they're in the oceans. I think they're underground. I think they're right in front of our faces. I don't think they're just coming from the skies. I think more likely they're coming out of the oceans before that. So it just goes and goes and goes. And like no matter how we got here, no matter how these bodies were created, what's inside is infinite consciousness and has to awaken to all these things to beat these uh these dark entities that have uh have really messed up our human story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe 100% that we are under, the domination of malevolent forces. Yeah, for sure. Like you were saying, whether people see that we were, taken hostage or whether we collaborated and brought about our own demise, either way, we now are in that situation where awakening is the doorway out of all of that. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It's always been within you. You
Yeah.
are God's. Jesus said. So that's why I personally don't think we could have been taken hostage. I believe we had to collaborate. Our free will. We had to, in some way, become divided in ourselves and forget who we really are and make that decision. But either way, the way out is within, and Jesus
Mhm.
does open that way. But circling back to the pastor's meeting to prepare for the disclosure, of
Yeah.
information, um, that could challenge faith, the church, their reflex to anything challenging is to demonize, right? So there are those who already are saying that all ETs are demons, and any impending contact is the Antichrist and evidence of
Yeah.
the end times, right? So this type of black and white thinking is so short sighted and dangerous. It just really fuels fear and division and keeps people from living in a balanced way, I think. And really, if I can just speak candidly, I think the real evil is the dominating systems that govern and control us anyway. Like they're not in service to truth and transparency. They're always controlling the narrative in a way that divides and induces fear. But there are many who will believe whatever that they're, whatever they peddle. So it'll certainly shift their paradigm. So I think, this disclosure will unfold in a way that really impacts the masses in unhelpful ways, potentially. So, but what about you guys? Where do you see this disclosure stuff going? Is it a
Mm.
big psyop, like, like some
Mm.
people are saying, or is it going to, to really shake the foundations of Christianity? Yeah. What do you think's going on here?
I think it could go left or right. I think it could go whatever way the masses decide for it. And I know that not all faith communities are resisting being curious, and some really are truth seekers and want to know. But the heads of these communities, they want you to know the way they want you to know. I believe they're in on it. They've known the whole time too. I mean, not your local pastors necessarily, but the people say at the Vatican, the people at the top. Like this is not new knowledge for them, but releasing it to people is very strategic. Like we've said, I think um, from option A, like positive option, my hope is that disclosure happens. Um, People rise above the fear narratives and understand that this is an opportunity to heal the planet, heal our world, work with the beings of light to fix our broken systems and restructure. But that is going to happen only if people don't choose fear and don't follow what the systems are telling them is the story. And I could see us, living, literally being part of this whole galactic federation, world peace, like healing healing each other. I mean, just it would be amazing. But then the other way would be we demonize all of these beings because there are some bad ones, and we surround the conversation with fear and bring about an end times narrative like this Project Bluebeam, bring about an end times reaction where people abandon their faith, abandon that there's a God at all. Just woe is me, jumping off of buildings, and the world does seem to be ending. I mean, that's really where it could go. So we get to choose. I think we have always gotten to choose, and I hope we choose correctly this time, because choosing the option of, hey, let's open ourselves up to this with discernment, like work with beings of light while protecting ourselves from beings of dark, but just hello, welcome yourselves to like the party at all. Like quit being oblivious to what's going on all around us and in our galactic world. Um, Quit being manipulated by things and be a co-creator of this world. Like that's where I hope this will go. But like you said, like there's people who are just going to do what their church says. And when you just demonize everything that's not from what your pastor said, you're really going to create a really ugly, scary world. So I hope that that people can, with their discernment, be open to curiosity and learning. And like I said earlier, be open to changing your mind and saying, "Oh, I thought the world was this way, but turns out it's this way." And now I'm going to walk forward with that new knowledge, rather than burying your head in the sand and saying, nope, this must all be demons. It's the end of the world. It's the apocalypse. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. This could be our level up, 1,000 years of peace, second coming of Christ era. If we would just be the Christs we're here to be and go with that flow. But if we reject it and go with the fear way, it can be a whole different doomsday situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I've seen this on TikTok a lot, and I just assume it's true because I've seen it a whole lot. But it says the number one thing mentioned or said in the Bible is "Do not be afraid."
Mm.
Well, if it's "Do not be afraid," then do not be afraid. Like
Mhm.
a lot of these beings that have been coming here and are coming here, and probably will start to show up now that the collective is more aware. It's it's a time to be alive, to be honest. I mean, you're talking about highly advanced beings or civilizations interacting with humanity on a level that's just almost on the same level as like the Greek myths, or on the same level as any kind of story where the gods are talking down. Like, not that they're gods per se, but like you go back in time and that's what they would have perceived them as. And we're kind of back there now where they're flying around in ships and they're getting shot down by our military and they're pulling creatures out, or creatures, that's horrible to say, but you know what I mean? Like extraterrestrials out. And, they've said these 4 races, and, it's just so much information flying in at once that I think a lot of the stuff they've said is true and their ships that they're showing are true, but it's a matter of what they're going to do with that information when it comes to controlling the narrative. Because we all know, like, I mean, we all know, like, if there's nothing to be gained out of it, nothing would be happening, So
Mm.
there's that part of the narrative. And I also think, from a personal prediction, like, they will probably try to do something along those lines, but I really believe that these good entities are here as well. I mean, I know they're here, and they're not just going to allow this to happen. Like, they're going to swoop in and we'll see something crazy happen, I bet. But I think the days of like the dark side, the dark entities, just being able to up and change a timeline because everybody's stupid and asleep is over with. Like, I think people know now. I think people know about Project Bluebeam. People know about our government's not as great as that we've all made it out to be in the 90s and the early 2000s. I mean, we've done some bad shit, and so has a lot of other people. And, we're just kind of all awake now. The internet has broken that spell to a point, and we've all just been able to be in touch with each other on the internet and share stories to the point where we're not going to have like a rug thrown over our eyes, like what's happening back in the day. Like there's so much information out there that I feel like, and I hope that there will be a counter to it from the Great Awakening, meaning what they'll try to do of the 2030 agenda and Project Bluebeam won't necessarily come into effect because people will know about it. And I also think the beings of light won't let it really happen because they're here to see us progress and to see us, move along. And I'm sure they've had a hand or a stake in us since the beginning of time, and they wouldn't want to see that either way. So I just think there's a whole lot at play, in the stars and the cosmos and the interdimensions, just all over, as above, so below. And it's just craziness without right now, everywhere. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think they'll release the information to control the narrative in a way that keeps people relying on external authority. So, so they can when I say external authority, I don't mean advanced intelligence beings. I'm talking about the government systems, the systems that are controlling the earthly realm, around us.
right.
But I believe that they want to keep people relying on that authority so they can kind of swoop in and save humanity from these evil
Yeah.
beings. And let's face it, a lot of people, have seen through the facade, and they're no longer, they no longer have all that faith in the government and, in the powers that be to make those decisions. And I think disclosure is a distraction, like you were saying, Annalise, the Epstein files. I think it's a distraction from that and other happenings that would cause people to wake up if they were paying attention. So it seems likely that the religious institutions will team up with the government to try and keep people looking to external authorities to keep them safe and to rescue them from this evil threat. But on the other end of things, there are also people I see out there who they see through the facade, of all those systems, but they're hoping that the ETs are going to kind of swoop in and save us. And I think that's misguided. It's like, I think it's all spiritual bypassing. And I think the way of liberation is within. The kingdom of heaven is within. And so sitting back and waiting for someone or something out there to deliver us into eternal bliss is what keeps us from our highest life path. We have a free will. We get to decide where we place our attention and our trust. We can see the results of trusting in external powers. Like we've been doing that since forever. So I think it's time that we yank our hands back and take authority over our own lives.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brandy. And I just want to say, my ADD got the best of me on that last rant I had, but to
Oh,
answer the religious question of like what's going on with the religion, I really think like, there's obviously the control factor of it all. It's the reason the CIA had them all come together with the pastors, the mega church pastors come together and start defending this narrative because let's just face it. They've made sure they've demonized mystics, Gnostics, women healers, indigenous wisdom, plant medicine, astrology, dreams, vision, direct revelations, and altered states. They've all been demonized, by the church because, they know best. And, I just really think that, of course, they would try to demonize anything that's brand new. They would demonize they would demonize anything they could if it just meant going against the control narrative and the story that they created, because obviously it's kind of crumbling that story that they created, and they'll have to readjust and open their minds up and understand that like these beings were there at the same time as the story was being written. It was just written in a way that they got written out and got replaced by you know, the word angels or demons. And that doesn't mean like that word is wrong. It's just not a great depiction of what was there. So at least that's how I think.
I think the angels and demons in the Bible were extraterrestrials.
So,
I think
yeah,
I don't
well, that's what I'm saying.
when I read the Bible and I mean, I didn't have this lens when I was younger, but I can't not see it through an extraterrestrial lens when when there's a star guiding 3 wise men all the way to Jesus's stable, when, like Parker said, um, there's some structure dropping bread to these people. Uh, Even Jonah and the whale. That sounds like an underwater ET to me, not a whale. You can't live in a whale's belly and then be shot out its blowhole. I mean, we've talked about this. But anyway, I think this story is a lot more familiar than people are remembering. This is what's been happening for all of time. Extraterrestrial involvement, the good and the bad, and then these little human institutions that want to tell you what it is to keep you reliant. And the heads of these human institutions are either these extraterrestrial beings or they're in cahoots with these extraterrestrial beings that want us under their thumb. So, and we did an episode on that, and shoot, now Fox News is telling you about reptilians. Why can't I? I mean,
We said it first.
we said it first, yeah. So I think the angels and demons thing, there's angels and then there's angelic extraterrestrials who are loving beings. It's all just words.
Yeah. It's just,
But it's very alien flavored, the whole thing, everything we know about reality. So there's nothing to be scared of. This is what we've always been living in. We just didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, and I think we have known it, but we framed it through this religious language,
Yeah.
the religious paradigm. So,
right.
we have envisioned angels and demons and the unseen realm in one way,
Yeah.
when in reality, I think it's more interdimensional in flavor, and that, yeah, these beings are interdimensional beings, and that's what aliens are, interdimensional beings. So, yeah, and I think it's a lot more complex than we can wrap our finite minds around.
Mhm.
So to just flatten it out to just, everything's a demon, that does not serve anyone well at all. I think we have to use our discernment, like I was saying earlier. And so also, though, it's interesting that, a lot of people are tying this to end times. So they're not just saying, oh, all of the UAPs and the UFOs or whatever are demons. All extraterrestrials are demons. I mean, I think I sent you guys a post this morning. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was the Fox News thing where they had the reptilian, the Nordic. Anyway, it was
Mhm.
that, like a picture of that clip, and a person was speaking into that, a religious person saying, yeah, all of these are demons. And we as Christians need to, rise up and know
Yeah.
that whether they're Nordic or reptilian or grays, or they're all just demons, different types of demons. And I think that's, it's just so short-sighted, and it stops. You don't engage with reality in a healthy
Mhm.
way and use your own discernment about things. You just label everything a demon.
Yeah.
But aside from everything being a demon, there's also a lot of spin around, oh, well, this is, end times. I even saw something where the rapture would be alien abductions or something. Somebody
Oh,
was saying, oh,
wow.
there's going to be a rapture and it'll be alien abductions. But, I think it's interesting, though, that the current events have always been tied to end times, like for hundreds of years. I remember people saying Gorbachev was the Antichrist, or the Pope years ago. Or really just insert any political figure that you don't like at the time, and you have yourself a new Antichrist with predictions of the return of Christ being any moment, looking for that external savior to swoop down and right all the wrongs and take us all to eternal bliss. It's troubling, really. I mean, you'd think by now that people would realize that none of these predictions have ever materialized. So maybe it's time to rethink that whole narrative. But I see dispensationalism, which is that futurist view that all of these, end time theories are kind of based around, is a real impediment to genuine liberation. As long as we're waiting for external events to materialize, like for the government to do this, or the temple to be rebuilt, or Jesus to whisk the righteous away, we just end up stuck in complacency. That's our whole problem. We're just down here spinning our wheels. Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me, not sit back and wait for a ticket to heaven while the world goes up in smoke. And I also think that it must be said that it is impossible to be the salt and the light, or to live from love, while also believing that war is the prerequisite for the coming of God's kingdom. Like, war is evil, and any theology that justifies war is really just missing the boat, in my opinion. But I'm interested in hearing what you guys think about it. Coming from that, evangelical type of thinking, Annalise, I know you shared with me a lot of, the end times anxiety that you had as a child. So I'm sure you've experienced a bit of relief in shifting away from that mainstream view. But yeah, I'm curious how you're processing all of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I was raised on the there will be blood up to the horse's knees, and
Yes.
if you're a real Christian, you're going to ride into battle with Jesus on his horse. You're not going to take the heaven escalator. You're going to stay behind and fight. And at like 7 years old, obviously that was a little much.
Yeah.
And apocalypse, funny enough, I think it just means the unveiling, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Apocalypse means like
Hmm.
unveiling
That's
the
it.
like
Revelation. Yeah.
yeah, the blindfold being taken off. So if that's the apocalypse, then heck yeah, this should be the apocalypse. But I don't think apocalypse is anybody being sucked up into the sky by any machinery or Jesus himself. I think excuse me. I think in the way this could be the apocalypse in a different way, in a way of all the lies are erased. We all know the truth. We know the truth of our human story, which there's a lot of people that believe that when disclosure truly, truly happens, we'll get to see our full human story history in some type of, I don't know, some type of holographic way, maybe, where there's no more questions of how did we get here? What happened? Like we know now. Um, and then we can evolve and change the world. And like I said, have that 1,000 years of peace that the Bible talked about, or just have a new earth, new heaven and a new earth. That would be what that is. So in that way of using the term apocalypse, yeah, I think it could be if we do it right. If we do it wrong, though, and let these institutions, have a spiral into fear, um, then it can just be the end of a beautiful world and the one world order can take over and we can all be their little machines far worse than we've ever been before. So I think it could be either way. I don't think Jesus was talking about us here in 2026 when they were describing um, the end times, like of, say, the fall of Jerusalem and those kind of things. Um, But I think in a symbolic way, yeah, this is the apocalypse in the best way possible, like the unveiling of everything we've needed to know so that we can ascend, we can go on to the next phase of humanity. Because we've been taught in church that like one day the earth's just supposed to end and then Jesus moves in and it's heaven now. And that's not what it is. It's one day the earth busts out of this prison, this false matrix that darkness has made for it. And now it's the new earth and the new heaven. We're still here though, except we're not a part of these evil systems. Now, instead of watching Netflix and scrolling our phones, we're farming our own food and sharing with our neighbor and loving each other instead of wars uh, and child trafficking. We're taking care of those that are vulnerable, and um we're doing what's right when we're loving. Like that is what we could step into. Or we could step into hell on earth, but the earth isn't just about to end. Like I think that's a really dangerous little like narrative the church gave us, that one day it'll all just end and we can go home, go to heaven, and we don't have to deal with life anymore. No, I think this show just keeps going and going, and we get to choose which way it goes. We get to choose, does it go with love or does it go with fear? And if you go with fear, you're creating hell out of what God gave you to create heaven with. That's how I'm
Yeah.
seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. I think, when people say the aliens are coming to rapture us and take us up in their spaceships, I think that's pretty crazy. I think that's not what's happening at all. I think, you know, I don't know who's heard this, but humanity is on a cycle. They are on like a 12,000 year cycle, and with each cycle there comes different things, and I think with this cycle, I think humanity is at a point where their consciousness is ready to take that leap and evolve. I think we've been maybe at this point before, but I think we're ready to take that leap now. And what I mean is like the last reset that happened 12,000 years ago. There's a difference though with this. It's been prophesied, that there will be a time where the good takes over the bad. And I really believe that's now. I mean, we're seeing it come to light. Everything's kind of coming to light right now. And I don't think there's going to be a reset. I think humanity is going to evolve. And with that timeline, means that, I also think the earth is upgrading. And that means it kind of goes back into the cycle thing. Like the earth is upgrading. Okay. The earth is getting blasted by the sun plasma rays that are getting shot off of the sun and hitting the earth. And it's blasting the magnetic field and supercharging the earth. And what that happens, and it's basically breaking the earth from its 3D form that's been there for 12,000 years or, more. And it's going to break through. And people call that, 3D to 5D,
The,
rapture,
the great solar flash,
well, yeah, the great
the
solar
sun
flash.
returning.
So
Mhm.
I think like, and there's evidence of that. Like, I mean, that's not even hypothetical. Like we can see the Schumann resonance of the earth's heartbeat but like going through the roof right now. And we can see the sun pounding the earth and its electromagnetic field. That's why you can see the northern lights as far as like Alabama, that doesn't happen without what I'm telling you is happening. And when that happens, the stuff of the earth charging up, everything's electrical. So when the earth charges up, the things on it will charge up too. And when that happens, the good stuff will shine and the bad stuff will start to shine, even though it doesn't want to. And that's why you have wars and you have these fake diseases that are popping up that they want to claim as the new pandemic and all this other bullshit. It's just, we've been there, done that as a collective, and we're not going back towards that. And I think that's part of this. Like, I really do think like there's no stopping this. And we've all heard that, like, there's no stopping the Great Awakening. And that's because, as you can tell, and is what I just told you, the earth is not going to stop. So the earth is not stopping its ascent. It's either we're going to move along with it or we're not. And when it comes to religion, if you sit there in the mindset of everything's a demon, everything is going to kill me, everything's going to drag me to hell to torture me forever, then buddy, you might be in that, like, this is going to be a rough ride for you, because
Mhm.
it's not like that. If it is that way for you, you're going to miss the boat because the fight, like when you can't break out of that mindset and just allow the open mindedness of new things to happen and transform the earth, transform your life, transform your body, it's, it would be a shame to reject, God's gift in that map, in
Mhm.
that form, because
Mhm.
we've all heard that allegory, I think, of or that parable, I should say, of the dude who's in the water and he's like, please, Jesus, save me from drowning. And like a boat passes and throws him a raft. And he's like, nah, man, Jesus is going to save me. And then another boat comes through and throws him a bigger raft and say, no, man, Jesus is going to save me.
And then a
And
helicopter comes,
yeah. And,
drops down a ladder. He says, "No, I'm waiting on Jesus."
and then he dies and gets to heaven. And Jesus is like, why are you here? And the guy's like, well, I asked you to come save me. Like, dude, I sent you like 6 things to save you and you didn't jump onto it. That's about where we're at right now. I
That is
kind
so
of believe,
true.
so
If we deny alien, like if we slap them in the face, say, "No, thank you. We want to keep on being this trash planet we are."
we want to have diseases and be,
I will leave. I will just leave. Like, we are not doing this. We are taking this ride. We are taking it. But Brandy, what do you think?
Yeah, that's all good stuff. I think, yeah, I mean, in the pursuit of truth, it's easy to get caught up in narratives that actually guard against genuine truth seeking. And I think that's like, a lot of what's going on. Like a lot of religion is just about conforming and identifying with a particular narrative. And any uncertainty or questioning is considered a weakness or a lack of faith. At least it was when I was still plugged into the church. So, yeah, it just shoves a particular narrative down people's throats, and they're not thinking for themselves anymore. And they're just labeling everything, in black and white kind of terms. Everything's a demon, like you were saying, Parker, and not able to discern, like what is or isn't of God, what is or isn't of love is what it boils down to. Because, um, overall certainty around mainstream beliefs, I don't know if people are plugged into that. If they want to have all that certainty, then disclosure or whatever the government releases, it could be pretty destabilizing, I think, because
Yeah.
people are just so rigid in they're gripping truth in a rigid kind of way. And what I think is most disturbing about it is the government's role in it all, really. I mean, the deception and darkness runs deep in that regard. So the spiritual implications of what they've been hiding for so long is what people really should be braced for. Like, we've been lied to, and when truth comes out, I think it'll be destabilizing. But it's not about really, oh, we've been created by aliens and there is no God. I think it's that, we've been lied to about who God is. Like, we've been peddled a war God. And for all those who still cling to that God, it's going to be particularly unmooring, I think, for things to kind of unravel. But we have Saturn and Mars, Neptune and Chiron are all in Aries right now. Like, it's a tower moment. Illusions are dissolving, foundations are crumbling. But it's a good thing because things need to break down so that we can move into something authentic, something sustainable and life-giving. So yeah, hopefully we don't hit a reset like you're saying, Parker. I hope that's not what happens. But I definitely think all of life is designed to awaken us, and I think that everything is moving in that trajectory. And yeah, we can either get on board, we have a free will in it, we have to awaken in our own timing, or get suffer, I should say. I don't even want to say get left behind, because I don't think anybody is ultimately ever left behind. But I do think that if we don't
It's a better
awaken,
word.
we
Yeah.
suffer. We
Yeah.
suffer, and it's like, pushing against the goad. And so, yeah, it creates a lot of suffering.
Brandy, something you said reminded me of when kind of this whole way of thinking came onto my awareness. Um, and I had a spiritual awakening, quote, quote. I had met God. I had that realization, but I was still super plugged into church, but wanting to leave, but just super confused about everything, but still very much like in religion. And Parker said to me one night, "Hey, what would you say if I told you that, like, that story in the Bible, like of God creating, and what if I told you that wasn't God, but that was like extraterrestrial brothers?" And I was like, you just shut your mouth right now. I can't handle that. And I'm working on other things that I'm dissecting from my awakening. And I can't do that. No, 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 because that would mean I was so lied to that everything I've ever experienced was seen through a filter of lies. And he's like, okay, then I won't tell you.
Yeah.
And anyway, as the weeks went on, I had him tell me, and then I start diving down ancient Sumerian tablet things, and I got really depressed about it because of what you just said. Like, it destabilized me. It made me, it shocked me. It made me really angry that I had ever devoted myself to a system and trusted a system that knowingly or unknowingly was lying to me about the very ground of reality. And I had to let go. I had to just let go. And um, real truth seeking, it does require that you be transformed by whatever you discover. If you're really wanting the truth and you get the truth and then you say, nope, not for me, well, then you're not truth seeking. You don't want the truth, you want comfort. Well, the truth is super uncomfortable, especially with this topic. And it might send you into like a depression if it's your first time hearing it. But be transformed by what you learn and come out of it transformed and knowing that you are upheld by God, because God is the ground of being. God is not a being. God is not a being in the sky or a being on earth. God is so much bigger than all of that. God is the very force that is driving all of this creation. And we get to be co-creators with God. And so if we don't take this really cool ship that just came for us, so to speak, and create a beautiful earth, we're, like Parker said, we're just throwing it all away. And I just wanted to say that to just maybe give people a little comfort. I've been there too. I remember that really dark, spooky feeling it gave me when I first heard this stuff, because I didn't want it to touch my framework for reality. But once I allowed it to, and I allowed myself to be transformed by new knowledge, it's honestly been the most freeing thing ever. It's been so freeing to see reality as so much more expansive and gracious and loving than the one I was given by church. So I just want to throw that out there for anybody that's a little destabilized right now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just want to say too, like with the whole, if the government says like, oh, you were made by aliens and they're your God, there is no God or whatever, something along those lines. I would say like I said at the beginning, like maybe this body has been DNA, messed with or whatever, but the soul that's in this body has not.
Mm.
And I also want to say, like, God in general is not an alien. It's not a person. It's not a being. It's like Annelise said, it's a ground of being that is all. God is within all. God is source. So there's nothing above source. Not an alien, not a interdimensional being, not a person, not an AI, not any of that. Just source. So I think that's be a good, um, a, a truth seeking tool in itself. Like if AI God pops out of the sky and says, "I am the God," like we all know, like, okay, you're not source, so you're not God. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Like Brandy
Yeah.
keeps saying, like awakening is within because God is within. God is that in
Mhm.
that source within. So we have to tap into that and quit looking to the skies, quit looking
Mm.
to these institutions, and realizing that this whole apocalypse narrative, it's not the destruction of the world, it's the destruction of humanity's certainty about the world and the destruction of the old systems.
Mhm.
We need this apocalypse because if y'all haven't noticed, these systems that we've been in forever, they're not working. And the darkness is taking over with these systems. So we really need an apocalypse of sorts. And I hope it'll be welcomed and that people can rise above the fear and use discernment. It's not hard. You can feel it. You can vibe it out. You know what's true deep, 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 deep down.
Yeah, and
Mm.
it is an end times. I forgot to say this a while back, but it is an end times. It's the end times of Pisces. The time when Jesus was born until now, that time is ending. So that whole period of the Piscean age of Jesus being born to now either has ended or is ending. And that is I mean, that's a megalithic event in itself, I would say. I mean, so maybe that's just what was prophesied back in the day, a, a time of going into the age of Aquarius and it becoming 1,000 years of peace, who knows? But, that was probably before they said astrology was evil and don't look at stars.
Yeah, back when astrologers found baby Jesus. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but the end of the world is just the end of the world's way of operating. Yeah, so it's things that need to end, right? So that it can usher in something more expansive. Yeah, and I would just encourage everyone to take plenty of breaks from media and find
Mm.
practices to
Yes.
center
Yeah.
yourself. Like, don't get caught up in the momentum of fear and propaganda. No matter what the government releases, no matter what they say, still use your own discernment because, I mean, consider the source. Have you ever been able to trust anything they tell you? They're not giving it to you straight. So if you hear
Not for
something that
free.
nah, if you hear something that unsettles you, that destabilizes you, I mean, consider the source and use your own discernment. because God is love and God is all is
Mhm.
guiding all. So I would just say stay centered in that, knowing that all is guiding all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
I just one more encouragement for
Yeah.
people listening to just hang on. Just hang on, 'cause I do believe the next couple of years are going to be beyond insane with the things that are released to our knowledge, the things we experience as a collective. But you gotta hang on because the other side, I know, is going to be beautiful. And that's it.
I love it.
Yeah. I would just say, from a practical standpoint here, like, don't people, everybody, listen, not everything is evil. Not everything is a demon. Sometimes they come here just to study us because we're a new species that lives among thousands of other things that live here on this planet. I doubt that is very common on every single planet, where millions of living beings and living things are living together.
Mhm.
So not everything is how it seems, and not everything is what Brother John in the pulpit says, okay? So remember to think for yourself.
As we close out, we just want to thank everyone for transcending this rabbit hole with us. As always, cosmic blessings and peace.
Do you ever grow discouraged by the weight of this world? Does Big Brother get you down with all the lies that he's told? Does the gloom and doom of nightly news haunt your dreams? So you scroll instead of sleep, 'cause distraction is key. But as long as there is still a sun up in the sky, I can choose to live on the sunny side. It's somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. I was sleeping just fine peacefully inside my American dream, awoken when those puppet strings were cut right off. The evidence you can't ignore, sheriff call you misinformed. I know the truth, but trying not to lose my mind. I'm somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song, and the state of humankind had me humming alone. Hello, common sense, I'm convinced we've lost our way, sold our attention to the system. Now there's power to reclaim, but as long as there's a heart beating in my chest, I will cling to hope that's true. I will cast out the rest. There's no price on peace of mind, oh, and you won't find it here. It's that perfect love above calling you near. I was sleeping just fine peacefully inside my American dream, awoken when those puppet strings were cut right off. The evidence you can't ignore, sheriff call you misinformed. I know the truth, but trying not to lose my mind. I'm somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side.